From athletes to authors, entertainers to innovators, we connect with those who help shape our culture. Join us in revealing stories of their lives and backgrounds, their triumphs and tragedies that molded them into who they are today. Authentically off-script and personally illuminating, this is Audibles with Jason Scarborough. This week on Audibles, Walker Jones.
All right, so June 18th, 1975. That's when we start writing your story. Growing up in the Jackson area, so how would you describe growing up there in Jackson?
Fondly, great memories. It was really neat because obviously my family, but my extended family was there. My first cousin, my dad's sister, Gail Pittman, lived right 3 houses down from us in the same neighborhood, and so I had cousins close. My mother's parents, my grandparents lived one neighborhood over. My dad's parents lived out on the reservoir. So I had, my aunts and uncles were all there. So, all my family was there. So that was always fun. And, it was also neat growing up in the, same hometown as your parents. Because they knew so many people and, just really felt like a great sense of community and, loved where we lived and, always grew up around a lot of people, a lot of family, a lot of friends, because of the history and our family being there and, really fortunate because I had a great relationship with my grandparents and with my cousins and aunts and uncles and that, and sometimes people don't have that if they grow up away and, very fond memories and a lot of familiarity, given the family history.
How would you describe yourself as a child?
Oh, I was a middle child. So I had an older sister who was like another mother who was really hard on me. I had a younger brother who was loved sports like I did, and he and I were very close. My sister and I were close. So I was kind of a typical middle child. I kind of bounced back and forth between my sister and my younger brother and, always into sports. I think my mom would tell you I had a vivid imagination, and sometimes probably told an occasional fib or elaborated on things a little too much sometimes. So, always was willing to tell a story or, converse with very outgoing and, I think it was fun growing up, in a house that had, siblings, and we were very active. We were outside all the time. I think back now, raising kids now, I just think back when I was their age, we really weren't allowed in the house. It was go play, wiffle ball, tackle football, kick the can, hide and go seek, go swim. It was just, we were always outside. And so very active, we were very active and, and I was probably a little mischievous, but kind of your typical middle child.
So it's kind of one of those things where don't come home until mom says dinner time.
Dinner time, yeah.
Time to eat.
Yeah. Well, and growing up in a neighborhood that had a bunch of kids and, we were less than a mile from Jackson Academy where we went to school. So we rode our bikes to and from school. We walked to and from school. So we just were kind of at home, being outside the home, being in the neighborhood at neighbors' houses. And there were no cell phones, or we didn't really have an Xbox, maybe a joystick Atari. Maybe somebody had that at one of the houses, but we were just outside, being kids, and so it was a lot of fun. And I yell at my kids now, like when I was a kid, this is what we did, when they're sitting on their phones or watching Netflix or whatever. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Took me back there with the Atari reference, by the way. Took me back there. Yeah. So it sounds like sports was really important to you really early on with having, a brother that was interested in sports. So how early can you remember sports being really important to you?
Oh, I think, I knew my dad was a college football player. I knew my dad, was an athlete. My mother was very, active. And so it was kind of in us to be that way, and my dad, I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to play, sports at a high level. And I probably the first real time it really hit me about competitive sports. I remember my dad always made me play up when I was younger. So my cousin, Sonny Pittman, was 3 years older than me. And my dad made me play on his Little League baseball team because my uncle and my dad were our coaches. And he said, Walker, you got to play up. So I was playing against kids that were 3 years older than me. So I was, kind of baptism by fire. I wanted to play against kids my age, and yet I'm playing against guys that were, twice as big as me. And so I remember that early on, always having to play up with my cousin. And then I tried out for a select soccer team called Thunder 75 at the time. And it was, they only took, I think 13 or 14 kids, and everybody in the city tried out for it. And I remember making that team when I was, I think, in 10U, maybe 10 years old, 11 years old. And that was that was kind of my first foray into competitive youth sports, travel ball, which now everybody's involved in. But for me, it was kind of like soccer was the first one where I actually had to go make a team, and we traveled all over. So yeah, so I think, starting at that 10, 11-year-old age group, and I'm very fortunate my parents gave us the opportunity to play literally everything. And it's kind of different now. Back then you played whatever season it was. You played football, then you went to basketball, then you went to baseball, then you went to soccer, and started all over again. Now they're, picking and choosing. So it was just kind of like, all right, it's the summer, so it must be time to play baseball and soccer. And you just kind of did that.
Walker Jones in high school. How would you describe Walker Jones in high school?
It was, I think in high school, I had a rough start. I was a little bit rambunctious, a little bit outspoken, probably had some self-discipline issues. I remember you just get those report cards that you would get every 9 weeks, and you'd have your grades, English, math, science, all that, and then you would have self-discipline and conduct. And I would always get an N or a U, which was needs improvement or unsatisfactory. Everything else was S's, satisfactory, except that column. And my parents would get so mad at me. I made good grades, I did good in everything else, but I was just, kind of, wanted to be the life of the party and the class clown. And so I remember going into middle school, I got suspended, and they sent me home, and I had to wait for my dad to get home from work and tell him that I got suspended for being disruptive in class. And I guess I can say it now, my dad beat my tail, and he whipped me good. And and I was so disappointed that I'd let him down, and I never wanted to feel that way again. And from that point forward, I kind of turned it around, became class president and a leader. And it's funny, I went back and spoke at JA at the commencement, I guess maybe 15 years ago, and some of the same teachers that were there when I were there in the crowd that day. And I had so many of them come to me and go, I never thought this day would ever come where you would be giving the commencement address after school, because you were a handful when you were here. And so, that kind of speaks to, kind of my path there. But by the time I got to high school, I was singularly focused on being a leader and being a college athlete. And so I think that middle school year is when I kind of turned it around and really started setting goals and focusing on, trying to play at the next level.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
We don't treat cancer, or design breathtaking buildings, or slow cook the town's most talked about barbecue. That's all you. You're the ones who create and astonish, game and laugh, who come together and imagine a safer, more connected world. The things you do inspire us every day. So much so, it's right there in our name. Customer inspired. C-Spire. Inspired by you.
Hi, I'm Erica Bedwell, the Director of Rehab at Covington County Hospital. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services says you have a right to choose the swing bed program that's right for your loved ones. Our patients experience a comforting, supportive, and healing environment in large private rooms. Our swing bed staff is highly skilled and includes board-certified physicians, practitioners, and experienced nursing staff, all working alongside physical, occupational, and speech therapist staff to return your loved ones to the quality of life they deserve.
Our farm's amber waves of grain become your tasty creations in the kitchen. From a bushel of wheat comes the flour you need to enjoy the breads, cakes, cereals, and pastas we all love so much. And even if you aren't a world-renowned chef, wheat grown in Mississippi is used in many of the foods you buy on the grocery store shelves. Wheat, just one of the many commodities a Mississippi farmer grows for you. The Farm Families of Mississippi.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
You were a leader at Jackson Academy. You played football and basketball. Were there any other sports?
Ran track. You know, that was one of the things back then is, you know, I remember my high school football coach, Kim Alsop, said, look, if you want to play college football, you got to be fast and you got to stay fast and you need to run track. And I loved baseball, but my goal was I wanted to play college football, and so you kind of had to run track. And so I ran track, ran the hurdles, the 110 hurdles, the 300 hurdles, all the relays, did the triple jump. And so really enjoyed track just because it was, you know, I knew it was kind of a means to an end to help me continue to, you know, fulfill my dream.
Apparently you could hoop pretty well because you guys won the 1994 overall state boys basketball championship. So describe winning a state championship in basketball at Jackson Academy. What kind of feeling was that?
Yeah, that was a great feeling, you know, and our coach was Stan Jones, who is now, you know, the associate head coach at Florida State for Leonard Hamilton, and he's been a college coach for a number of years and very well respected in the game of college basketball. And he was our coach. He came in and kind of changed the culture there, and I credit him probably for making the most influence on me from a coaching standpoint, because we weren't really a basketball school, and he came in there and completely changed that. And you know, we had a lot of talent. We had you know, that year myself was playing football at Ole Miss, Richard Lee, who signed to play baseball at Mississippi State, Mackie Edmondson, who was on the Final Four team at Mississippi State, played basketball. Hastings Puckett was a point guard for UNC Wilmington. Andy Cunningham went and played at Western Kentucky. So we had some guys that were really good athletes, and we had a great coach, and you know, that was a lot of fun because it was a chance to win a state championship in a sport that we had not technically been good at. I actually love basketball and would have loved to play college basketball. The problem was nobody needed a 6'3" power forward. I could get away with being a four-man at 6'3" in high school, but I don't think it was going to work in college. But yeah, certainly a fond memory, and you know, still close with all those guys.
Now you decided after graduation in '93 to continue your education and your athletic career at Ole Miss. Why'd you choose Ole Miss?
Childhood dream.
Yeah.
You know, my father played in the late 60s, you know, the Archie Manning years, played for legendary coach John Vaught. And I just remember, you know, watching my dad's old tapes, listening to the old radio, Stan Torgerson on the old radio broadcast, you know, going to the Grove, and you could pull cars into the Grove and play and tackle football, you know, in the Grove. And just, I was there the day Chucky Mullins broke his neck and was injured, and remember that moment indelibly forever. And so it was a dream of mine. You know, other schools recruited me, and I had some great opportunities to go other places. But, you know, there was no doubt. I'll never forget my junior year. I came to summer camp up here, and we were out on the practice field, and Billy Brewer walked over to me and pulled me out of a drill and said, you know, we're going to offer you a scholarship, you know, going into my junior year. And I never forgot that, and still remember that moment, you know, the late, great Billy Brewer. And, you know, I wanted to play for him, and former player, obviously, here. And so, you know, once Ole Miss offered, it was kind of done at that point.
It was kind of off to a tumultuous start when you got here because they dismissed Coach Brewer. You had an interim coach in Joe Lee Dunn for a while.
Right.
Then Coach Tuberville comes in, and you guys are facing sanctions, probation, all sorts of stuff. How did you personally, and then your teammates, how did y'all navigate such a dark time in Ole Miss history?
You're right. It was a tumultuous freshman year. I remember when I got to campus, they fired Coach Brewer. Coach Dunn, Joe Lee Dunn, was named the interim head coach. Coach, you know, with all due respect to Coach Joe Lee Dunn, he was a great defensive coordinator, not a great head coach. We had a lot of talent on that team. We didn't play great. You know, just nothing really felt right, with dismissing a coach a month before, 2 months before the season. And so it was tough. And I remember, as soon as our freshman year was over, we all had a decision to make. Do we stick this thing out? We got levied with the second worst NCAA sanctions since SMU got the death penalty for crimes that none of us committed. It was guys from 3 or 4 years ago. So we were getting punished. We were basically going to jail for somebody else's crimes. And so that was hard. But it was interesting. We had in that class, we had a lot of guys that were Mississippi kids. And, me being one of them, others, Stuart Patridge, Eli Anding, Nate Wayne, I'm sure I'm leaving out some more, but, the South Panola crew, Johnny Jones, Malika Griffin, all those guys. Like, we had a lot of people from Mississippi in our freshman class. And so I think there was a sense of pride that we didn't want to, bail and leave our state. And they hired Tommy. We thought we were going to hire Tommy Bowden, who was the head coach of Tulane at the time, that's the only name we knew is, it's Coach Bowden's son. And we ended up hiring Tommy Tuberville. None of us had ever heard of Tommy Tuberville. And he came in here and he gave us an identity and a purpose. And we only lost one player on the team. Joe Woods transferred back home to South Carolina, but he was the only player on the team that left after the probation, which I think was quite a testament to the culture that we had.
The 95 season, things started to turn around, but for you personally and on the field, you led the team in tackles that year.
That's right.
And continued to improve. What was your approach to trying to improve year to year?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I was a quarterback in high school and came thinking to play either quarterback or receiver. I wanted to be an offensive guy. That's what I wanted to play. And I remember they came to me in the spring going into my sophomore year, and they said, look, you played safety in high school. We're really thin over there. Why don't you go over there and play safety? And I was mad. I didn't like it. I wanted to play offense. And, kind of resisted initially. And the more I stayed over there, the more I realized, I could actually have a career over here and play. And finally, after about a week, kind of bought into it and came out of spring as a starter and never relinquished that spot, from that point forward. And again, I was blessed to have a lot of really good teammates around me. But I had to kind of make and I wasn't, just to be clear, I wasn't the only one that had to change positions, because of probation and the scholarship limitations. We had a lot of guys that had to go play different positions. Brock Kreitz, who was a quarterback, had to come over and play linebacker. Nate Wayne, who was a quarterback, had to come play linebacker. Eli Anding had to play both ways, offense and defense. We had guys literally platooning and playing all over the place because we were down numbers. So we all had to kind of sacrifice, and I think that's what created such great culture, throughout those years. And by the time we got to our senior year and we got off probation, we had a great locker room. We had great culture. We were a very unselfish group, and we all had kind of sacrificed for the betterment of the program. And it allowed us to, to win 8 games our senior year, beat Randy Moss and Chad Pennington in the Ford Motor City Bowl in Detroit, I think a day or two after Christmas, which I never thought I'd be in in Detroit on Christmas. But again, it was just, one of those opportunities that, you look back on your 4 years, and we were really grateful and a sense of achievement to be able to get to that point after going through all that adversity on the front end.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
It's your front door. You decide who and what comes inside. Shouldn't it work the same with your doorway to the internet? That's why C Spire created Connect and Protect. So age-appropriate content comes into your home, and the rest stays out there. C Spire's new Connect and Protect plans, starting at just $30 a month. Get the best devices for your kids with free guided setup today. C Spire, inspired by you.
It has often been said that home is where the heart is. It's where hard-working and dedicated people form the fabric of a thriving community. At Covington County Hospital, it's our priority to help keep our community safe, healthy, and moving. With our primary care clinics and services, we are working to keep you healthy. Because home is where the heart is. Home is where family matters. Covington County Hospital, where your health care matters.
Up before the dawn and home long after the sun sets. We pass this farm work ethic on to our children, too. They have their chores just like yours, but we also raise animals. Taking care of these animals helps them understand just how important what we do on this farm is for their future and Mississippi's.
Another way Mississippi farmers grow what's important to your life, the farm family of Mississippi.
Yeah, that 97 season, I think you're peeking over here at my questions because, that 97 season, of course, that's the Egg Bowl where Corey Peterson catches the 2-point conversion to win the game. And you mentioned knocking off Randy Moss and Chad Pennington and Marshall in the bowl game, winning 8 games. I mean, you have to reflect now. We were kind of talking about it before the interview. That team, you and your teammates, kind of helped keep Ole Miss afloat in a lot of ways and keep the program from completely going under. Do you look at it that way?
I certainly do, and I think everybody that played with me does. I mean, I think it was not cool. Ole Miss was not what it is today. We didn't have come to the sip and the drip and juice and all that stuff. Like we had to kind of rebuild it, and we had a really big black eye from the NCAA. It hurt us in recruiting, and but I think the silver lining was we had a bunch of guys come here that wanted to be here and cared about this university. And, we were able to get it on solid ground so we could recruit better players. If you look at the history of the 4 years I played here, we recruited better players every year. I probably got at it just in time because they were recruiting better players than me to take my spot. But, we did. We took, me personally being a 3-year starter and, a team captain my senior year are things that I personally reflect on as, big honors to me. And starting, 38, 39 games in a row personally, but more importantly, collectively as the group, I think the sense of accomplishment that, we were able to, kind of get through this tough time. The stadium was being renovated. It was being expanded, all these good things that were happening. So there's no doubt we have a sense of accomplishment with that. We helped kind of get us through that rough time. Who
was the hardest to tackle for you back then?
Kevin Falk.
Really?
Running back LSU. Played a lot of years for the New England Patriots. Kevin Falk, I had to play against that guy every year, and he was I think 5'11", 6 foot, 225 pounds, tough, thick, could outrun you, loved to run you over, had an unbelievable stiff arm, ran angry. We played against a lot of great ones. There were a lot of them that were hard to tackle. I just remember him, every time we had to play against him, I'd be like, oh, Lordy. He was tough. I mean, there were other great guys. Jamal Lewis at Tennessee was no fun. Fred Taylor at Florida wasn't a lot of fun. J.J. Johnson at Mississippi State was a load. I mean, that was back in the day where tailbacks were 230 pounds and they were sitting back in the eye running downhill at you, and you were getting ISO and, eye backfields and 21 personnel. You don't really see that anymore. So there were a lot of guys that were hard to tackle.
I was going to say, you can't really run away from that, can you?
No, you can't. And, it was one of those deals where, they're going to come find you. So, we were able to, we were great gang tacklers. That's what I like to say.
Toughest SEC stadium that you played in during your time?
Oh, I'd say Tiger Stadium.
Yeah,
Tiger Stadium. I mean, the Swamp, we got to play at the Swamp the year they were really good, the year they won the national championship. That wasn't a lot of fun. The great thing about SEC is there's so many great road trips. Playing at Alabama, playing at Auburn were phenomenal. Playing at Tennessee in front of 110,000 people against Peyton Manning was a wonderful memory. The nastiest was definitely Tiger Stadium. Those fans truly hate you. Those other places are big and loud, but there's a little bit of a sense of respect, not at LSU. So I just remember we played down there twice. We beat them my senior year down there, but my sophomore year we played them at night down there on Halloween, and they beat the mess out of us. And it was it was a little nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Yeah, Tiger Stadium at night, Saturday nights is pretty.
Everybody should have to experience that.
They should. Bucket list.
Yep.
So you work as a financial analyst in Jackson for 2 years after Ole Miss, Morgan Keegan and Company. But that's not where your passion was. You had to get back into football. So you write your former coach, David Cutcliffe, and you pleaded, look, any job to do with football, I'll take it. It worked. He hires you as administrative grad assistant for the 2001 season. So looking back at that now, as you sit here, how would you describe that experience?
Probably one of the best lessons I ever learned, because this is 3 years removed from being a team captain to coming back and being literally the lowest guy on the totem pole. And the guys that were freshmen when I was a senior are now ordering me around, and I'm a GA, I'm fetching, coffee, and I'm breaking down film till 3 a.m, and I'm setting up practice schedules and all that stuff. And so it was a humbling experience, but a very rewarding experience in that. Peyton Manning and I were friends through our fathers, and I remember calling Peyton saying, look, Coach Cutcliffe's got the job here. I need to get back into sports. And he was like, well, look, I'll put a call into him, but you need to approach him, write him a letter. So I, back in the day, after my dad was like, look, a phone call's great, but a handwritten letter goes a long way. And so I literally wrote him a handwritten letter, and I just asked him, can I drive to Oxford and get 30 minutes of your time? And he responded. He had coached against me and knew me through Peyton. And, I drove up to Oxford and walked his office, and I basically told him, I'll do anything. I just need to get back into sports. And, that's what I wanted to do. And he was like, well, if you're willing to do anything, I got a job for you, but it's going to be grunt work, and you're going to have to pay your dues. And again, that's what I tell that story all the time. There was virtually no compensation, and it was, menial, very tough, non-rewarding work, because nobody could see you doing it. You're doing all the behind the scenes stuff, but it was probably, to me personally, the most rewarding job I've ever had.
You continue to move up. You moved up to assistant athletic director for internal affairs at Ole Miss, and then comes an opportunity for you to get out of athletics, and you move over to the marketing side of things with TeleSouth. How would you describe going from football, something you had known your whole life, and now you're moving over to the marketing side of things?
Well, I think, and again, I got some really good advice from somebody at the time when I knew I wanted to be in sports, and they said, look, while you're young, you're single, I was just getting ready to get married, but we still had some mobility, and you're figuring things out. You're trying to set a reputation, and you need to meet people. Be willing to do a wide variety of jobs in athletics. Learn how to do a little bit of everything, because there's so much opportunity. You try coaching, you try marketing, you try administration, you try sales, all these different things. Try to do as much as you can as early in your career, because you're going to gravitate to one of those disciplines. You're going to meet a lot of people, and you're going to learn a lot of skill. And so for me at that time, I was like, all right, I was in this job for a year and a half now, let me go try something else. And, multimedia rights was a big piece that was really kind of exploding on college campuses. And Ole Miss had a different type of relationship with TeleSouth. And Pete Boone, the AD at the time, was like, look, we need somebody, a general manager, to help oversee that. It'd be a good chance for you to learn that world. And so, again, it was just kind of that mindset of like, let's try as many different things as I can so I can build a very vast, diverse skill set.
Now, it's during the time at TeleSouth that your story takes a dramatic change.
Yep.
You get a phone call from a gentleman named Kevin Plank, one of your longtime friends. What happens next?
Well, this is the story about, it's not what you know, it's who you know. One of my teammates, John Dessler, was Kevin Plank's childhood friend. And, Kevin had started, this T-shirt company out of his grandma's basement up in Maryland. And he was wanting to get into college athletics. He wanted to outfit teams. And, I'd met Kevin a few times through John when he would come down and stay with John. And, just met him, through that relationship. And he literally called me out of the blue and said, look, I want to start a collegiate sports marketing division, and I need somebody that knows college athletics. And would you be willing to move to Baltimore, Maryland, and come take a flyer with this, with our company? And, neither my wife or I had ever been to Maryland. I'd never been to Baltimore. And I said, yep, sure, let's give it a shot. And again, we were young enough at the time that, we could be mobile, and, we had 2 young kids. And so I said, look, let's give it a shot. And went up there to kind of build out. And it was really neat because Under Armour was kind of bursting on the scene at that time and was kind of the challenger brand of Nike and Adidas. And, it gave me a chance to really try to kind of like build something that already had a big infrastructure in the company, but build a department. And, they were just starting to sign schools, and, they had Maryland at the time, and we were just signing Auburn with my former coach, Tommy Tuberville. And so it gave me a chance to kind of develop and grow a department at a much bigger level and on the brand side of things and not the university side. So it was a little bit of a calculated risk, but it was something that I couldn't turn down.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
We don't treat cancer, or design breathtaking buildings, or slow cook the town's most talked about barbecue. That's all you. You're the ones who create and astonish, game and laugh, who come together and imagine a safer, more connected world. The things you do inspire us every day. So much so, it's right there in our name. Customer inspired. C-Spire. Inspired by you.
The fabric of any community is its people. It's the commitment to hard work and to be our best. It's where you know your neighbor by name. It's where family is important. At Covington County Hospital, we are your family and friends. That's why your healthcare is important to us. From emergency room visits to primary care to behavioral health, we want to make sure that healthcare is available when you need it. Covington County Hospital, where your healthcare matters.
Harvested in June and July, Mississippi-grown sweet corn arrives just in time for your cookout or outdoor get-together. But you better be quick. Once Mississippi-grown sweet corn appears on your local farmers market shelves, it disappears just as fast. There are so many ways to cook and eat Mississippi-grown sweet corn, but of course our favorite is corn on the cob.
Sweet corn, just one of the many foods the Mississippi farmer grows for you, the farm families of Mississippi.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
I would say it paid off. I'm going to read this off to you. So during your time at Under Armour, and correct me if I have any of this wrong, from 2008 to 2018, you oversee all North America sport categories, totaling over $100 million annually. The responsibilities for you included identifying, recruiting, signing, managing professional athletes, NCAA teams, universities, and strategic industry partnerships. Some of those notable partnerships included the NFL, Major League Baseball league sponsorships, along with athletes named Cam Newton, Bryce Harper, Jordan Spieth, Julio Jones, and partnerships with universities such as Notre Dame and UCLA. In 2008, you secured the company's first all-school apparel and footwear sponsorship with the University of Maryland, and then expanded to 22 partnerships across major NCAA conferences by 2018. That's a mouthful. That's a lot of, when you reflect on it now, you're like, yeah, there's a lot of hustling and a lot of phone calls, but when you reflect on what you accomplished there, as you said, on a calculated risk, what comes to your mind now when you look back at all you accomplished?
Yeah, I think it was the right time. Look, so much in life is about timing, and I was fortunate with timing that I was entering the company at a point when they were really, the trajectory was about to take off. So we had, what I think the best thing I learned is when you have a great brand, it opens up so many doors for you. And Kevin had created an unbelievable brand, a great logo, protect this house, that challenger mentality, had really gone after that team sport athlete. And, we could do a lot of things that Nike and Adidas couldn't do due to their size. We could be much more nimble and much more aggressive. and could outmaneuver those guys at the lower levels and really go after that next generation of athlete, that team athlete. And so, I was fortunate that I had a great brand at the right time. And then we just put the work in. And, I think back now, my wife would tell you, and I would tell you too, like, there was a cost to some of that. I was gone a lot. I traveled a ton. I worked long hours, and, was away from my family probably more than I wanted to be at the time. But I think it all paid off to, where I am today, and, the ability to make up for lost time, and, the value that we were able to help, create for our family, but also for me learning, in the applications that I have now today, how to manage brands and how to manage athletes and communicate and navigate a university culture and those types of things. So the experiences were invaluable. The memories are phenomenal, and I don't regret any of that.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit to what you're doing now.
Yep.
So given the state of Mississippi changed their enactment of NIL law back in 2021 and subsequently amended it in April 2022. So how early because you've got all this experience at this point, perfect guy for the job, how early on was the Grove Collective on your radar?
It really wasn't, I'll be honest with you. And I had kind of passively watched NIL develop from afar. I kind of paid attention to it, but not a lot. Didn't really know if I liked it or not. It wasn't around when I was playing, so I shouldn't like this, that kind of thing. And I remember, this is, again, we talk about timing, but this is what's crazy. I had another business that I was the chief marketing officer for, one of the general partners in it, a youth sports business. And it was out of Boston, and I was traveling to Boston, several times a month away from my family. We had moved back to Collierville, Tennessee, close to our families, and had finally gotten some great balance with our family. And I found myself now flying to Boston all the time. And I remember telling my wife, hey, this I can't do this. This is wearing me out. And so, through conversations, I went to our CEO and our board and said, look, I need to take a step back, and, I can't be coming to Boston. Y'all need somebody here full time. I'm not moving to Boston. I can't be here full time. And literally the day that the board approved kind of my new relationship with the company to allow me to stay home and spend more time with my family was the first phone call I got on NIL from Lane Kiffin.
Wow.
And Jimmy Sexton, who I'd worked for at CAA as a coaching agent, I had known Lane through Jimmy, and Jimmy, I think, was the one that kind of had recommended to Lane and to Keith Carter, hey, Walker, y'all should probably definitely talk to Walker. And so literally I'm driving from our office in Boston to Boston Logan Airport in an Uber to fly back home and tell my wife, hey, look, I'm not going to have to fly to Boston now every week. And was the first phone call I got about Ole Miss NIL. And then subsequently there was some conversations over the next week or 10 days with Keith Carter, with Lane, with some of the other coaches, some of the other people around here. And I just said, look, this is intriguing. And I almost, I don't want to sound corny, but it was almost a little bit of like fortuitous timing and a sign to me that, like, because I was literally going, what am I going to do now? What am I going to spend a lot of my time doing? And on that day I get this phone call. I'm like, well, maybe this was meant to be. And so I told those guys, I said, let me research it for a month. Let me put a plan in place. I need to read up on it. I don't know enough about the Grove Collective or NIL in general. I didn't really know what a collective was. And I came back about a month later that summer and said, okay, based off the people I've talked to and my research, here's a plan that I think we could execute at Ole Miss to give us a chance. And that's kind of how it started. And that was in June of 22.
Don't go anywhere. Audibles returns in a moment here on the Spirit Media Network.
Between the blue sky and green grass, there's a Mississippi cattleman making sure the food you need is on your local grocery store shelves. Whether it's a big juicy steak or hamburgers for your backyard cookout, our food starts right here. Because for these cattlemen, it's not just a job, it's caring for the animals that make up our nation's food supply. Just one of the many commodities a Mississippi farmer grows for you, the farm families of Mississippi.
It's your front door. You decide who and what comes inside. Shouldn't it work the same with your doorway to the internet? That's why C Spire created Connect and Protect. so age-appropriate content comes into your home and the rest stays out there. C Spire's new Connect and Protect plans, starting at just $30 a month. Get the best devices for your kids with free guided setup today. C Spire, inspired by you.
Hi, I'm Erica Bedwell, the Director of Rehab at Covington County Hospital. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services says you have a right to choose the swing bed program that's right for your loved ones. Our patients experience a comforting, supportive, and healing environment in large private rooms. Our swing bed staff is highly skilled and includes board-certified physicians, practitioners, and experienced nursing staff, all working alongside physical, occupational, and speech therapist staff to return your loved ones to the quality of life they deserve.
Family owned and operated since 1986, Lakeside Molding has become the trusted source of architectural products throughout the South. They offer fine interior architectural moldings, custom millwork, and cabinet doors designed and handcrafted in Flowwood. Their showroom on Lakeland Drive is stocked with today's most sought-after interior details, including corbels, post, fireplace mantles, bath vanities, mirrors, and much more. Tim Shoemaker and his staff work closely to meet client needs for new construction, restoration, and remodeling projects. Lakeside Molding, where details make the difference.
Do you feel like being a former player here and a former sports agent and being in marketing as much as you have, but particularly being a former player here, do you think that gives you an advantage, kind of helps you relate to these guys a little more?
Yeah, I think so. And I think for those reasons is probably why Lane and Keith and those guys thought I could do a good job. I didn't know. I said, look, if I'm going to take this on, this is my university. I have tremendous pride in my university. I don't want to do something that is going to draw harm to my university. And if it's as important as Coach Kiffin says it is and as Keith Carr says it is, I want to make sure I really am the right guy for the job and I can really invest in it and make it a differentiator for us because this is personal to me. It's my school. And so, but I think all those things kind of helped, being an agent, and most of our athletes now have agents. So knowing the agent world helps. Being on the brand side and understanding how to protect a brand and create a brand and manage a brand like we had to do at Under Armour. So I think that was important. Being a former coach, being a former player, being able to walk into a room of a bunch of players and saying, hey, look, I sat in that same chair you did. It looked a lot different back then, but a lot of it hadn't changed. And so I think all those things probably in totality probably helped me navigate it a little better. I certainly, there's no doubt, I and my staff at the Grove Collective probably gets sick and tired of hearing me say it, but I certainly pull things from those past that we've talked about today, from working at the university, from working in multimedia, from working at Under Armour, working for Jimmy Sexton at CAA. Like, I'll tell them stories all the time and I'll pull, quotes or anecdotes or examples from those times when we make decisions today. And I think they've helped myself, navigate it. And I think it's helped our collective.
It sounds to me that based on just watching how the Grove Collective operates, your experience in marketing, your experience as a sports agent, your experience playing defense here at Ole Miss, I felt like from watching other collectives operate and still watching them operate, you guys were really ahead of the game. You and your staff, it felt that way. It feels like it's been pretty seamless. I know there's challenges, obviously. Sure. I've talked about those. Yeah. But it feels pretty seamless. And it feels like Ole Miss was ahead of the game more so than maybe some people expected them to be. Is that a safe bet?
Yeah, look, I think, there's a couple things I attribute that to. Our staff is phenomenal at the Grove Collective, but the support we've gotten from Keith Carter, Glenn Boyce, and this university, we couldn't do anything without that relationship. Keith and I were classmates together. We were student athletes together. I've known Keith for 20 some odd years. I think there's a lot of trust there that he and I have with each other. And Keith trusted us. Keith took a little bit of a risk, and Keith gave us a lot of rope and probably put himself out there a little bit. And I think that was a huge springboard to get us moving in the right direction. I think probably more so than anything, the alignment with the university and all the stakeholders with the university and our collective at an early point was probably the thing that separated us from the pack, because there was a lot of schools, even now, which is crazy to this day, that still don't talk to their collective and they don't interact. And I think we kind of broke that wall down early on and embraced it. And that allowed us to get way ahead of each other. And that only happens through familiarity, through trust, through great communication and alignment. So I give our staff at the Collective a ton of credit. I give Keith, the chancellor, this coaching staff, Coach Kiffin, all of our coaches here at Ole Miss a ton of credit, because that alignment, it's easy to talk about, but it is really hard to get right, and we got that right early on.
I've watched a lot of interviews with you, heard a lot of interviews with you, obviously the conversations we've had, and I couldn't wait to ask you this question. How in the world do you manage your time? You've got other irons in the fire with other projects, but as executive director of the Grove Collective, you've got a lot of times where the sports are all intersecting. How in the world do you manage to manage your time in between all those sports?
Yeah, look, I think it's, time management is a constant struggle for everybody. Anybody that says, I figured out how to balance work life, and I just don't know if you ever truly 100% figure that out until you're retired, So I think that's a constant battle we all face: self-awareness, self-evaluation, where to spend your time, and being as productive as you can with your time. I've got 3 kids, so I obviously want to be a great father. I want to be a great husband. I want to be, a great friend, all those things outside of work that are important, to me and to most people. Those things, you have to be able to give the time to those things. But in this world, it's almost kind of like you have to learn how to kind of fail quick and move on. And I was talking to a school the other day that was asking us, hey, how'd you guys get out in front and all that? And they were talking about all these initiatives they're working on and all that. And I said, look, if there's probably anything that I've learned over this is there's a lot of things that are going to sound great in theory and they're not going to work in execution. And some of the best laid plans are going to blow up in your face, because that's the nature of NIL. And you've got to learn when to pivot, and you've got to learn when to fail and move on, and not keep beating your head against the wall trying to make something work, because it's just, there's so much anonymity with NIL. There's so much undefined, so much gray space out there that you can twist yourself in knots constantly trying to do all these different things. And so I think that's the one thing we've learned is we try a lot of things, but we move, and we're constantly moving. And if something works, we'll double down on it. And if it doesn't work, we'll either evolve or adapt real fast, or we'll move on. And I think for me, that's where I've learned to know where to spend my time, where my time can be the most valuable. Let our staff spend their time. And I think the other piece of that is a complementary skill set. When you have people around you that have a complementary skill, I know what I'm not good at. They know what I'm not good at. I know what they're good at, what they're not good at. So when things pop up, I'm like, all right, you handle that. And they're like, yep, I got that, you got that, I got this. And we kind of complement each other. But I think that's like in the world of NIL, it's like the fail fast, move on, and go to the next thing. And I think that helps you pick up hours in your week.
Speaking of time, I'm going to switch it up on you here a little bit. So what do you do to just wind down and try to, whenever you do get a moment, sleep? Is that what you do to wind down?
No, I think our family life, like our kids, I've got a daughter and 2 boys. They're all playing sports. They're all involved in various tasks and different crafts and things. And, I think really the enjoyment I have in what they're doing is probably the biggest release for me. Going and watching my daughter play a softball game, my sons play football or baseball or lacrosse. My daughter's student body president this year and just went to Ecuador for a mission trip. So like listening to those stories and watching her go through those things, like that to me probably, I'd love to say, yeah, I fish all the time, or I play golf 3 days a week, or I go to the beach 5 times a year. That's just not reality. We may go to the beach once a year. I may get to play golf once or twice a month. I may go fishing with the boys every now and then. But I think consistently for me, it's trying the challenge that probably we all face is being where your feet are and being present where you are, especially with your family. And my wife would agree with this. I struggle with it just like everybody. And put the phone down and remind yourself, have a family dinner, go to a game, go watch the kids compete, go to church together, do all those things. Like that's a constant struggle because of the time. But I think I get the biggest release in my mind when I'm invested in what's going on with the family.
So my final question for you, you've written so many chapters here at Ole Miss as a student athlete, a fan, worked in the football administration department. I mean, you've got a lot of chapters here so far. What chapters would you like to see still written for Walker Jones here at Ole Miss?
Oh, I think I've got 3 kids who will go to college, hopefully, at some point over the next, 7 or 8 years. So I think, obviously it'd be great to see if all of them or some of them come to school here and get to experience what I got to experience as a undergrad here. So, there's that possibility out there and kind of living through your kids' college experience. So I'm looking forward to that. And wherever they end up, they may go somewhere else, and we'll enjoy that too. But I think that, number one, from a family perspective. I think professionally, it's whenever this NIL road and rev share and this new world of college athletics, whether athletes become employees or not, and all that, I just want to be able to look back and say, you know what, we made a difference in a positive way. Number one, we gave our coaches the ability to be really competitive and win championships. But we did it in a compliant way, we did it in a responsible way, and we made a difference in these men and women that chose to come here, that had to deal with this new college model. We made an impact in their lives. And I think at the end of the day, that's probably the most important thing to me, is protecting the welfare of our student athletes, making a difference, giving our coaches a chance to be able to compete, and then being able to sleep at night knowing that we didn't bring any harm to the university that's given me so much in my life. And that's really personal to me. And however that chapter ends up, how many years down the road that is, and whatever twists and turns NIL and the college model, the athletics model in college takes, I just want to be able to sit there and say, we made a difference. And, the neat thing is, these athletes, if we do it right at the Grove Collective, are going to be able to leave with a lot more diverse skill set than I did when I left. They're going to know how to pay taxes. They're going to know how to budget. They're going to know how to manage their time. They're going to know how to protect their name, how to network in business, how to run smart social media campaigns, like all these things that I didn't know when I left here. Because of the compensation now, hopefully we're being a conduit to teach them those lessons, so when they leave here, they're that much better prepared.
A life colored by the red and blue here at Ole Miss, peppered with a lot of successes. And you've meant a lot to Ole Miss. You have. I mean, I know Ole Miss means a lot to you, but you meant a lot to Ole Miss and the state of Mississippi. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for being a part of our show, and I look forward to seeing you this football season.
Absolutely, Jason. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Come on, Stephen.
Audibles with Jason. Walker, take 1. Mark.
Attaboy. His name's not really Stephen. I'm ready. You ready?
They're ready. Let's do it.
3, 2, and 1.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week for another episode of Audibles with Jason Scarborough.